Welcome to the We Don't Have Cookies International Podcast Day episode with your host, Jason Marshall.
Hey everybody, Thanks for downloading the show. If you're listening to this on the day it comes out, it is International Podcast Day, and I'm going to be talking to all the international contributors on the podcast. It's going to be a lot of fun. My first guest is the newest contributors to the podcast. They are so new that the segments haven't started playing yet, but they will start very soon. From the Wood Enthusiast Podcast, it's Larry Woodstone and Gary Gilbert. How you guys doing?
It's Gilbert. We're just so excited. And I know the last time we talked to you, I had mentioned that we were very excited, and I feel, and I speak on behalf of Gary here, that sentiment still remains the same. We're just very excited. Really, is what we are.
Well, I appreciate that. It's great to have you guys back. I loved having you the last time, and I want to ask real quick.
We're Canadians. You know that, Jason Marshall. We're Canadians, and I think being part of your international show is important because we represent, a host of things like moose and beavers and deers and things that some people don't even really recognize as significant parts of our country.
It's where pines and maples grow.
And that's in our anthem, Jason.
And it is a wonderful anthem. I love your national anthem. The last time you were on the podcast was an episode of Martial Law where you won the case against Choo Choo Stew. I've been off social media for the most part since then. Has he followed through with his punishment?
It's funny that you say that. There's coming into September, me and Gary, we've got kids. And school has started, and it's just been absolute havoc where we are. So we've also been off social media for the large part. But, I trust Choo Choo Stew. And that's a relationship that we have to have, being thousands of miles away from each other. We have to trust each other. And as you speak that, we're actually going to go, I think it was, what was the song he was going to sing?
Barbie.
He's going to sing I'm a Barber Girl from Aqua something. And we're actually going to connect with him, I think maybe tonight or tomorrow, and see if maybe he's followed up. Because you're right. He needs to be held accountable. We won fair and square, Jason, and we had some pretty prestigious judges make that case for us. And I think he needs to make sure he follows through because he promised he would, Jason. He promised he would.
We've just been busy with bark season.
It's been a heavy bark season. It's peeling, Jason. It's peeling up here in the north like crazy. You wouldn't believe it.
Wow.
You wouldn't believe it. It's curling. Some of these birch trees, some of these birch trees are curling, and Gary's out there time in and time out collecting these birch samples because he likes to write on them like papayas. You see, he's writing a book on birch bark, and it's peeling. So right now it's kind of his season where he's out there. He's collecting all the birch he can. That's right.
That sounds very appealing. I was going to ask what's going on in the world.
That's funny.
Well, the thing with birch is you can't put it through a color printer. I've got a color printer at home, but you can't put it through a color printer.
Well, I was going to ask what's been going on in the world of the wood enthusiasts.
Oh my goodness, where to start? We're still, I know Gary, just a few minutes ago before we got on the air, Gary said he's still reeling over the Walnut Convention. Mm-hmm. We've had some kind of a fallout of the Walnut Convention because Gary actually brought home a 26-foot piece, and he was only supposed to buy a 12-foot piece, and he underpaid. So some of the vendors there have been saying, you know what, we want some of our money, and because of some of our celebrity and some of our kind of notoriety, they've been able to contact us, and there's a bit of a fallout with some of the community in that way. But Gary's very, he's an upstanding guy, and he says, you know what, I'll send you some of the money, but you got to give me some proof. And Gary, you've said that a lot.
That's right. I've also offered some shavings.
He's offered some shavings. He offered some of his Rub Fresh savings, and I think that's a fair and equitable, exchange, but. There's a lot going on. Jason. Some things that, we can't speak about because we are, kind of the, informal presidents. And the community's large and it's exciting, but there's some things going on behind the scenes that we're excited about that we can't really talk about. But I'll tell you this, Mr. Marshall, I'm going to tell you this, and I don't even know if I should be saying it, Gary.
Well, watch it.
Jason Marshall, have you ever heard of Hallmark?
Yeah.
Okay, so where we are, we're up hunting. We're up north. We're up in Muskoka, and we're hunting. And we were just downtown. We're going to go get some wings. We're going to go in town and get some wings for a little snack. And downtown Huntsville, Ontario, Hallmark is filming a Christmas movie, and it's only September, but the entire town's covered in foam that's supposed to look like snow. And it's not snow, Jake. It's not snow because it's I know it's for some of our listeners, they don't know what Canada's like, but it's not snowing in Canada yet. It's not going to snow until late November. So we started to walk through the set. And they, because of some of our celebrity and some of our notoriety, they called us on. They asked us to be some extras.
Nice.
So we're an extra in this movie, and this is actually true. You can actually look it up on Google. This is true. We were walking through the set, and we noticed, Jason, listen to this. Okay, give me a second. Listen to this. We noticed a lot of these trees that they had on the set were fake.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Gary's furious over here.
I walked off.
We're Muskokas, where there's 900 billion thousand pine trees, and they're using fake Christmas trees, fake pine trees all over the streets, lit up like Christmas, and all of it's fake. This is Hollywood for you.
Larry was screaming at me to come back, but I couldn't return.
I was having a meltdown.
Yep.
And these are some of the things, as a wood enthusiast, these are some of the things that we're attacking. Mm-hmm. These are some of the moments that we, Jason, we need to put our feet down. We need to say no. And Gary got really pissed off.
Mm.
Gary was stomping through that foam on the ground, stomping around. He was really pissed off and said, "This is ridiculous." We were extras, so we might even be in the film a little bit, but we were extras. So, we've done tons and tons of film. We've been doing it for years and years and years and years. But this was really exciting for us, but it was also infuriating. And this is kind of what we do. We kind of put our foot down here and we say, no, we need to start waking some people up here, Jason Marshall.
Larry and Gary, thanks for being on. They will be back for the next episode. That will be the Canadian Thanksgiving show. Until then, is there anything you guys would like to say before you go?
Yeah, I just want to let everybody know that if you plant more trees and shrubs near your home, you will save up to about 25% on your energy bills. It casts shade on your house, and that cools your house down.
Gary, Jason Marshall, you might not even know this, but some of the kids are using the slang term. Don't be throwing shade. They say things like, "Oh, hey Carl, don't be throwing shade on me." But what Gary's saying is that's a really good thing. Mm-hmm. You can save a lot of money by growing some of your own trees and casting some of your own shade in a positive way. And that's kind of a note we'd like to go out on. We're trying to help.
Well, I'm going to play a song by the Arrogant Worms, and I'll be back.
Hi, this is Trevor Strong of the Arrogant Worms, here to represent Canada and wish you a happy International Podcast Day. I will be returning next week for the Canadian Thanksgiving episode. Talk to you soon.
When I look around me, I can't believe what I see. It seems as if this country has lost its will to live. The economy is lousy, we barely have an army, but we can still stand proudly, cause Canada's really big. We're the second largest country on this planet Earth. And if Russia keeps on shrinking, then soon we'll be first. As long as we keep Quebec, the USA has tanks, and Switzerland has banks. They can keep them thanks, they just don't amount. Cause when you get down to it, you find out what the truth is. It isn't what you do with it, it's the size that counts. Most people will tell you that France is pretty large, but you can put 14 Frances into this land of ours. It take a lot of work. It take a whole lot of work. We're larger than Malaysia, almost as big as Asia. We're bigger than Australia, and it's a continent. So big we seldom bother to go see one another, though we often go to other countries for vacations. Our mountains are very pointy, our prairies are not. The rest is kind of bumpy, but man, do we have a lot. We got a lot of land, we got a whole lot of land. So stand up and be proud and sing out very loud. We stand out from the crowd, cause Canada's really big. Thank you.
Joining me now is the unofficial Swiss ambassador to the world and the person behind the Swiss quiz. It's Fran Kissling. How you doing?
I'm fine. Thank you for asking.
What have you been up to since we last spoke?
I have been travelling around the UK, making people aware of Switzerland and what it means to be Swiss.
Nice.
A lot of people are now more Swiss than they were before they heard my words.
I was going to ask if you had any converts, so that's good. You've brought people over.
Yes. Most of them are only slightly more Swiss, but it's a start. You have to start somewhere in life with whatever you try to do.
That is true. What do they do when they become more Swiss?
You will see people eating Toblerone. Some of them might read Heidi or take up a winter sport.
Okay, those are good clues. So if I see somebody that's reading Heidi or something along those lines, I'll know that I can move on to the next person. That person is already on their way to becoming Swiss. I can look for a better target.
That's right.
I want to thank you for calling in to do the Swiss quizzes with guests. I know they really enjoy them.
I really appreciate your help with raising awareness about Switzerland, especially with your international audience. You have done well.
Thank you very much. I know one thing the guests really like are the pamphlets they get on how to become more Swiss. You did a really good job making those. They really look nice.
Thank you.
Well, I think there's the obvious, but is there anything you would like to promote before you go?
I would like to promote Switzerland. If you don't know much about Switzerland, look it up on Google. Visit Switzerland. Try Swiss chocolates. Pick up some phrases. There is a lot of things that you can do to learn about Switzerland and to become more Swiss.
Do you have any Swiss phrases that would be fun for the listeners to get a start on?
Yes. Our national greeting is Grüß euch.
Okay. Let me see if I can do that. Grüß euch?
That is not quite right.
Okay. I'll be working on that, and next time we talk, hopefully I can open up with that.
I would appreciate that. That would make you more Swiss. Thank you.
Well, Fran, it was great to talk to you. We have to move on to my next guest, but I appreciate you being on the show today, and I will make sure that I keep spreading the word about the Swiss, and hopefully the listeners will too.
Thank you for having me on the show. You are doing great work, Jason.
This is Barnaby Griffin. I'm from the UK, and I would like to wish Jason and all of his listeners a happy International Podcast Day. Happy International Podcast Day.
Want to contact the show? Send an email to jason@wedon'thavecookies.com or call 929-266-9342 and leave a voicemail.
My next guest is one of the latest musical contributors to the podcast. I briefly talked about him on the Cookie Palooza episode last month and played his song Enjoy Yourself or Get Out, which is one of my favorites. Joining me now is New Zealand's own Andrew London. How you doing, Andrew?
Hi, Jason. I'm very well, thank you. How are you over there?
I'm doing really good. It's a rainy day here right now, but we've had a very pleasant afternoon, so I can't complain. How long have you been making music?
I think since I was probably about 13 or 14, and I learned to play. I was besotted with American rhythm and blues and the Beatles and the Stones from the UK. I found myself on a national circuit with another guy as a duo, run by one of our breweries who owned all the pubs in those days. And we travelled around for a couple of years with a whole lot of other acts, duos and trios. Yeah, so ever since all my life, basically, off and on, I've got diverted once or twice.
What drew you to your style of music?
I think the music I play is based quite heavily on standards of the 30s and 40s, which I became very familiar with as a child. We always had a lot of records of Louis Armstrong, Benny Goodman and Nat King Cole, Ella Fitzgerald. So I was very familiar with that music, I've retreated more and more into the more loungy, jazzy styles, I suppose. So,
well, there's a bit of comedy in your songs too. Have you ever done stand-up or thought about doing it?
No, I never have. The biggest respect and admiration for stand-up comedians, I think it must be really difficult, or you have to be naturally very funny, and I don't think I am really. The comedy in my songs was almost accidental. When I started writing seriously for the trio I was in, they had a little bit of an edge. So a lot of the songs, I think of them as being more satirical than comedic, but hopefully they're both.
You've been doing this for a long time. You must have a million stories. So I'm sure you probably have a lot to pull from with this question, but what's one of the funniest things to happen to you on stage?
Well, we've had, I suppose it's fair to say, we've probably had some quite funny things happen. Falling off the stage on a cruise ship during a storm was pretty... We've had that. We cruise ship work up around the South Pacific Islands, and every now and again, you go through a bit of a storm, and you might get a 5, 6, or 7 meter swell happening, and so that can be quite amusing.
I want to thank you for being a guest on the podcast today. Is there anything that you would like to promote before you go?
We have an album coming out, and this album will be called Standard Deviations, and should be out in about a month or two, maybe early October. So we'd be looking forward to getting that promoted out and about.
Sounds great. I'll make sure to let everybody know when that comes out, and they can get that on iTunes and Amazon, or where can they find that?
All the trio and some other collaborations, and the new one we're putting out, Standard Deviations, will be out on bandcamp.com. It's bandcamp.com.
All right. And I'll have a link to all that in the show notes as well. So if you haven't went there already, just look in the show notes and click on the link, and that'll take you there, and you can order everything Andrew London has on there. That would be very nice of you. So, Andrew, again, I want to thank you for being on the podcast today and allowing me to play your music on the show. I'm going to take a quick break, and I'll be back.
This is Frankie McDowell. Be prepared. We don't have cookies, and I'll be on the next episode.
A candlelit dinner for two. Your eyes are deep Tory blue. I touch your cheek and softly I speak 3 little words to you. Teresa, may I drive you back to your place, then look at your jowly old face. Filled with romance, I throw you a glance and whisper while we softly embrace. Teresa, may I? My lust can't be denied. No, you can't dispute my ardor, but I must come inside so you can snoop on my charter. Or will you end this evening? If you will, I'll respect it. Or would you like to know the meaning of a filthy hard Brexit? Ooh, 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 I don't think you will mind, because Brexit still means Brexit when it's done from behind. But before I flip you over, we'll snuggle up on the sofa, 'cause we're in no great rush, so stick on some Kate Bush, and I'll ask you before we babushka, Teresa, may I? My desire grows bigger, my heart beats swiftly. It's time for you to trigger my Article 50. So let's go into your bedroom where you always want some. And soon you will be sitting on my Boris Johnson. Teresa, may I? Teresa, may I? I have to say, I think, Teresa, I may.
You will recognize my next guest voice. She is the person who does the intros and other stuff for the podcast. Born in Brazil, a citizen of Germany, and currently living in Louisville, Kentucky for some reason. It's Maya Sponholz. How you doing?
I'm doing great. That was an amazing intro. Thank you. You've got all the nationalities in there. Good job.
The last time you were on the show, you were telling fairy tales that went horribly wrong that you thought were right.
In some eyes, all right? I think Goldilocks did pretty well for herself.
You got another one for us?
There's a few variations of fairy tales here and there. There's obviously, I don't know if you know this, but you know that Cinderella's sisters actually, they cut off their toes and their heel, I believe.
What?
And that's the version we tell children. Yeah. And then there's the Little Mermaid. The Little Mermaid goes to land, has to give up her voice. She can't convince the prince to marry her, so she ends up committing suicide.
No.
That's what we tell children. But actually, I do have a really good one for you.
Okay.
It's not a fairy tale, but it's a funny thing you tell me, because I plan on telling these stories to my children. There's a German book, and it's been passed down from generations to generations. It is ancient, and it's called Der Struwwelpeter. Struwwelpeter being a person named Peter who doesn't take care of himself, doesn't cut his hair, doesn't, cut his nails, clip his nails, that kind of stuff. And there's several stories in that book about things you shouldn't do. For instance, you shouldn't set your house on fire and that kind of stuff. There's a girl who plays a fire and she sets herself on fire and she dies. The usual stuff. There's a story in there of a boy who doesn't want to eat his soup. And as a person who detests soup with a passion, I totally understand this, and I will use this as an argument against anybody. Like that, it's people here in the U.S. don't seem to understand why I hate soup. It's because I'm not poor anymore. I can afford carbs. So Chris's mom, for instance, she makes chicken soup. She puts an entire chicken in water and she drowns out all the juices, and then she throws the chicken away. Like, why would you just drink chicken juice? I'll never get it. So there's a story of this boy who won't eat his soup and he gets real thin and dies.
What?
The usual stories you tell your children. There's another one of a boy who won't look straight ahead. He keeps looking in the sky for something, and eventually he falls into a hole and dies. All these children end up dying.
What the hell? These are all fairy tales for kids, right?
Yes, they are, and they rhyme. That's what makes it childish. That's what makes it enjoyable to children.
Well, since this is the International Podcast Day episode, do you have a funny story about growing up in Germany?
No, it was in Germany.
That's a good place to end it. I want to thank you for being on the show. I'm going to take a quick break, and I'll be back.
Hey, this is Canadian Tracy Rowland.
And Dwayne Mailman from Winprov. Happy International Podcast Day.
We will be on next week for the Canadian Thanksgiving episode.
Stay tuned.
G'day, Beej here from the BS Pod and also newpodworldorder.com. Did you know if we took every elephant in the world and laid them end to end in space, all the elephants would die?
Want to contact the show? Send an email to jason@wedon'thavecookies.com or call 929-266-9342 and leave a voicemail.
Beej wanted to be on the show today, but he wasn't able to, so he sent in that segment so Australia could be represented on this episode. I want to thank all of my guests for being on today's show. 7 different countries were represented on this episode, from Canada, the UK, Switzerland, Germany, New Zealand, Australia, and the United States. I'm really proud of that because when I first started this podcast, I wanted to have people on it from all around the world, and I'm very grateful to have today's guests as members of the We Don't Have Cookies family. I also want to thank the people who founded International Podcast Day for letting me use their trademark name. That was very kind of them too. The next show will be the Canadian Thanksgiving episode. I'm really excited about that because it will be the debut of Frankie McDonald as a guest on the show. If you don't know who he is a really popular weather enthusiast who has 177,000 YouTube subscribers and has appeared on Tosh.0. I've played things from him on the show before, but I've never had the chance to interview him. That's going to be interesting. So if you haven't yet, subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss it. And if you've already subscribed, please help spread the word and leave a review if you have time. That's it for me this week. I'll talk to you next Monday.
Thanks for listening. Tell your friends about the show and leave a review. See you next time.
I just want to let everybody know that if you plant more trees and shrubs near your home, you will save up to about 25% on your energy bills.